so we can carry on with our afternoon. We've got more ceremony and really, really interesting debate coming up in just about half an hour's time. So stick around for that. Just to get us started again this afternoon, we're going to hear from a couple more countries who are celebrating the 150th anniversary with us. And the first one is China. Thank you from China, and we're going to move swiftly halfway around the world because we have another video coming, I believe, and that's from Hungary. In the festive spirit. It's time now. We've been honouring a lot of people, and it is important. We've got a lot of ministers from member states here today, and first of all, our Secretary General, I think you would like to be up here to welcome them, and I'm going to read out our ministers. I'm going to tell you now, this has nothing to do with importance, it's just in alphabetical order. So, could we welcome first to the stage Angola? You here? Azerbaijan, and Croatia. Djibouti. Japan. Moldova, fingers crossed. Morocco. That cake was just too good, obviously. Myanmar. Poland. Russian Federation. Serbia. Sierra Leone. Uganda. And finally, the United Arab Emirates. And Rwanda. Last but not least, we've got our special guest, Mr. Soo Byung-soo, Mayor of Busan Metropolitan City. One last, Democratic Republic of Congo. Grant has been for the Minister of Japan is now coming. Thank you very much for being here. And we got another well-wisher, sent us a message by video. It's from the United Arab Emirates.
At this event, let us pledge to work harder to further the vision and mission of the ITU and build a future where all members of human family are connected and enjoy access to basic ICT services.
Thank you, ITU.
Thank you, ITU.
Thank you, ITU.
شكرا ITU.
شكرا ITU.
Thank you ITU. شكرا ITU.
It's a testimony really to the ITU, how we're hopping around the globe here with all these different videos from different member states. We have one more for you just now. From the Middle East, now we're going to Latin America. Here's Ecuador. Thank you, Ecuador. We know, we've heard it many times already today, ITU is a membership-driven organisation. And I think from what I've heard from Secretary General Zhao and many other people working here on the 150th anniversary, it's very important to recognise the members. And of course, this event, which we've all been enjoying, has been supported by a good many sponsors who've been really incredibly generous. And we'd like to recognise them. We have 3 gold sponsors from Azerbaijan, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. We're going to hear from all of them. I would like to call first upon the Minister of Communications and High Technologies of Azerbaijan, Mr. Ali M. Abbasov.
Mr. Secretary General, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, firstly, let me to express my gratitude and thanks to staff of ITU and Secretary General and all member states for the recognition of our contribution to the development of IT globally. On behalf of the government and the ICT community of the Republic of Azerbaijan, I would like to congratulate the ITU with its 150th anniversary. It's a great honor and pleasure for us to be here today and to be a partner of the celebrations. 5 years after the invention of telephone, the Nobel Brothers Oil Company, operating in the city of Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, connected its chairman's office and the house of senior engineer with 6 kilometers of telephone line. This occasion, historically and officially, is considered a starting point of the development of telecommunication in Azerbaijan. Just to let you know, Baku Enterprises were main production base for the company's impressive financial results and made establishment of the Nobel Prize Foundation possible that we are aware of. As the telecommunications and the ICTs were facilitating oil and gas or any production and supply chain, we now witness how the nature of ICTs has changed for the last couple of decades. And harnessing and utilizing it more effectively is the key for international cooperation. With its 150 years of journey, the ITU has been clear with its mission and will be visibly developing it further, even if we are not sure how the nature of ICTs will change in the future. The priority of the ICT sector for our country has been frequently emphasized by His Excellency Mr. Ilham Aliyev, the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, in his Converting Black Gold into Human Gold doctrine, and also in the development of the concept called Azerbaijan 2020 Vision for the Future. With the support of the ITU, Azerbaijan government has contributed immensely both to the doctrine and the development concept. Azerbaijan joined the ITU in 1992 after the disintegration of the Soviet Union and has since been fully committed to his values of the Union. With generous support of the ITU member states, last year in Busan, Azerbaijan became a member of the Council a very first time. Azerbaijan essentially helps the ITU General Secretariat to drive the broadband deployment across the world and is strongly involved in the activity of the UN Broadband Commission for Digital Development. The government of the Republic of Azerbaijan has initiated a platform for improving connectivity between Europe and Asia, and the ITU is one of the partners of the project. The first telecommunications satellite was successfully launched with the kind assistance of the ITU, availing the reliable broadcasting and the internet connectivity for emerging markets within the coverage. I would like to assure you that Azerbaijan will further continue supporting the ITU as it remains indisputably valuable platform for the global ICT community. I congratulate you all once again, and thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. There.
Thank you.
Don't forget your medal. Our second gold sponsor is the Acting Governor Communications Information Technology of Saudi Arabia, Mr. Habib K. Al-Shankiti.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. معالي الأمين العام للاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات، أيها السيدات والسادة أصحاب المعالي الوزراء ورؤساء الوفود، الضيوف الكرام، نيابة عن معالي وزير الاتصالات وتقنية المعلومات في المملكة العربية السعودية الدكتور محمد السويل، الذي كان حريصاً على مشاركتكم هذا الاحتفال الكبير، ولكن حال دون ذلك برضو الارتباطات الطارئة. يسرني أن أتحدث إلى جمعكم الكريم بمناسبة الذكرى السنوية الخمسين بعد 100 لتأسيس الاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات. وأود باسم المملكة العربية السعودية أن أعبر عن سعادة بلدنا بمشاركتكم هذا الحدث المهم لأقدم منظمة حكومية دولية ووكالة متخصصة في الاتصالات وتقنية المعلومات تابعة للأمم المتحدة. كما نسعد اليوم برؤية بعض زملائنا السابقين من المسؤولين المنتخبين والمندوبين الموقرين الذين كان لهم أثر واضح في مسيرة هذا الاتحاد وتحقيق أهدافه. أيها السيدات والسادة، يقوم الاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات بدور قيادي في قطاع الاتصالات وتقنية المعلومات من أجل قيادة العالم المعاصر إلى عوالم متعددة في شتى مجالات التنمية الاقتصادية والاجتماعية وغيرها، وقد أصبح من الركائز الأساسية لتقدم الدول ونموها ودفع عجلة أنشطتها المختلفة وتقريب الشعوب فيما بينها وتحقيق الرفاهية لها. إن المملكة العربية السعودية منذ أصبحت عضواً في الاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات عام 1949 وفي مجلسه الموقر عام 1965 لم تتخلف عن هذه العضوية والاطلاع بمهامها، وقد سخرت المملكة العربية السعودية مواردها وخبراتها لدعم أعمال الاتحاد، وتعتبر من الداعمين الماليين الرئيسيين للاتحاد. والمملكة عازمة وعاقدة العزم على مواصلة جهودها لدعم الاتحاد. أيها السيدات والسادة، إن الذكرى السنوية 50 بعد 100 لإنشاء هذا الاتحاد تعد مرحلة رئيسية في تاريخ الاتحاد ونقطة انطلاق جديدة نحو آفاق ليستمر الاتحاد في دوره القيادي لكل ما يتصل بالاتصالات وتقنية المعلومات وتنظيمها على مستوى العالم، ومواكبة المستجدات والمتغيرات في بيئة الاتصالات وتقنية المعلومات لما في خير الشعوب العالم كله. ويجدر بنا أن نعتبر هذا الاحتفال هو بداية تحقيق أهداف جديدة، ونوصي الأجيال القادمة التي سوف تأتي بعدنا أن تواصل هذه المسيرة وأن تحتفل ل 150 سنة قادمة من عمر هذا الاتحاد. ختاما أتمنى لاتحادنا هذا التوفيق وإلى الأمام، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you very much. And now for our third gold sponsor, I'd like to call upon the Chairman of the Board of Directors, Telecommunications Regulatory Authority of the United Arab Emirates, and that is Mr. Mohammed Ahmed Al-Kanzi.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، معالي الأمين العام للاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات، أيها السيدات والسادة، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. في هذه المناسبة المفعمة بالدلالات نقف معا لنسترجع تاريخا يمتد إلى تلك اللحظة في 17 من مايو 1865، عندما اجتمع فيها فريق من أصحاب الرؤى الإنسانية الثاقبة والبعيدة لكي يخطوا بأيديهم أحرف الاتفاقية الدولية للإبراق، تلك الاتفاقية التي انبثق منها الاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات ليغدو صرحاً إنسانياً شامخاً تتفيأ البشرية في ظلاله الوارفة وينعم بخيراته الملايين من أبناء هذا العالم. على امتداد التاريخ أيها السادة، كانت التنمية في جوهرها تقوم على شرط الاتصال والتواصل بين بني البشر، وهذا الشرط يحمل في داخله حتمية التصدي للتحديات والحواجز على امتداد المسيرة الإنسانية. كان الزمن والمسافة والعوائق الطبيعية كثيراً ما تحول دون الاتصال الإنساني المباشر، وبمجرد استحداث وسائل لنقل المحتوى عبر تلك الحواجز والمسافات اتسع الأفق الإنساني ليستوعب كل ما يمكن للعقل البشري أن يتخيله من المنجزات والإبداعات لخدمة الإنسان في كل مكان. أزاء تلك الحقيقة نقف ونتساءل: أحقاً تفصلنا عن تلك اللحظة 150 من الأعوام؟ من الإجحاف أيها السادة احتساب عمر اتحادنا العتيد بمقياس السنوات، ذلك إن ما حققه الاتحاد عبر هذه المسيرة إنما يقارن بما حققته البشرية في فترات طويلة سابقة. وعندما نتأمل في مفردات الزمن الراهن التي نتداولها في عالم اليوم، حيث المدن الذكية والحوسبة السحابية وثورة البيانات والأجيال المتعاقبة من الإنترنت والقرية العالمية الصغيرة وشبكات التواصل الاجتماعي، عندئذ فقط ندرك أن تلك 150 سنة إنما تختزن في داخلها قرونا وقرونا من الطاقات البشرية الخلاقة. لقد كان انبثاق الاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات إلى الوجود استجابة طبيعية وملحة لحاجات إنسانية مستجدة ومتطورة، وككل الجدليات التاريخية المعروفة التي يتحول السبب فيها إلى نتيجة والنتيجة إلى سبب، سرعان ما بات الاتحاد نفسه عاملا من عوامل تطوير الحاجات الإنسانية. ثم أخذ الاتحاد يتكيف ويتطور استجابة لتلك الحاجات، وهكذا. يمكننا الحديث مطولا عن مسيرة الاتحاد الذي نحتفل بذكرى ميلاده اليوم، لكن أي حديث عن هذه المسيرة لا يمكن إلا أن يتعرض إلى الأثر الذي تركه الاتحاد في حياة البشرية جمعاء. من المؤكد أن أوجه هذا الأثر، من المؤكد أن أوجه هذا الأثر هي أكثر بكثير من أن يحيط بها خطاب موجز كالذي أتشرف بإلقائه اليوم أمامكم. أيها السيدات والسادة، إنه لمن دواعي الفخر والاعتزاز أن أقف أمامكم اليوم مهنئا ومباركا، أقف أمامكم ممثلا لدولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة، البلد الذي يختزن تجربة تقوم في جوهرها على اختصار الزمن ومجابهة التحديات واعتماد الرؤى البعيدة والعمل بهمم عالية للوصول إلى الأهداف التي تنعكس خيراتها على الجميع. ومن نافل القول إن دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة كانت ولا زالت من الدول الفاعلة والمؤثرة في مسيرة الاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات، وقد تبدى ذلك منذ استقلال دولتنا في 2 ديسمبر عام 1971، حيث انضمت إلى الاتحاد بعد عام واحد على تأسيسها، أي في 1972. ومنذ ذلك الحين دأبت على تقديم كل الدعم اللازم لأنشطة الاتحاد. لقد كانت علاقة دولة الإمارات بالاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات قائمة دوما على مبدأ التأثير والتأثر، وهو مبدأ مستوحى من ثقافتنا القائمة على التفاعل الإنساني والتشارك والانفتاح على الآخر لما فيه من مصلحة عامة ومشتركة. ونحن ماضون في تعزيز هذه العلاقة ونقلها إلى آفاق أكثر رحابة وعمقا. ونتطلع في هذا السياق إلى استضافة دولة الإمارات لمؤتمر المندوبين المفوضين في عام 2018، عاقدين العزم على أن نجعل من هذا الحدث العالمي صفحة مشرقة أخرى في سجل تاريخي وإنساني حافل ومضيء. إن دولة الإمارات أيها السادة ترنو إلى المستقبل بعيون مفعمة بالأمل وبعقول مستنيرة وبخطى واثقة مستوحاة من رؤية قيادتها الرشيدة التي راهنت على الإنسان كصانع للتنمية وكهدف لها في آن واحد، ووضعته في قلب المعادلة الاقتصادية والاجتماعية، رافعة شعار سعادة الإنسان، وهو شعار يستند إلى أرضية صلبة من البرامج والمشاريع التي يعتمد الكثير منها على قطاع المعلومات والاتصالات ومخرجاته المختلفة. إننا في دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة نعمل على قدم وساق للانتقال نحو مرحلة جديدة من الحكومة الذكية والمدن الذكية، وقد كان من دواعي سرورنا أن يعتمد الاتحاد الدولي للاتصالات مدينة دبي كأول مدينة في العالم تطبق مؤشرات أداء المدن الذكية. إننا ننظر إلى هذا الإنجاز على أنه شهادة جديدة على الريادة التي تتصف بها دولة الإمارات في مجال التطبيق الذكي لتقنيات الاتصالات والمعلومات من أجل خدمة المتعاملين وبهدف تحقيق السعادة لهم. إن هذا الإعلان يعد محطة على طريق طويل وممتد، هو طريق التميز الذي رسمت معالمه قيادتنا الرشيدة ووضعت له هدفا واضحا يتمثل في جعل دولة الإمارات في طليعة دول العالم ووفق رؤية الإمارات 2021. في الختام يطيب لي أيها السادة أن أعبر عن عظيم سرورنا في دولة الإمارات العمل مع اللجنة المكلفة بترتيب احتفالات الاتحاد بالذكرى 150 لتأسيسه. ذلك أننا ننظر إلى هذه الاحتفالية باعتبارها تتويجا لقصة نجاح إنسانية وتاريخية سوف تبقى في كتب التاريخ وذاكرة الأجيال ما شاء لها أن تبقى، باعتبارها عنوانا لقيم السلام والرخاء والعمل المشترك والتنمية والدمج الاجتماعي والتطور والارتقاء. نتمنى لهذه المنظمة المرموقة أن تظل على الدوام منارة للبشرية. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thanks to our gold sponsors for those inspiring speeches. Now, of course, you wouldn't have gold without silver and bronze as well. You can see them waiting over there. We're going to honour our silver and bronze sponsors as well. Going to come up on the stage, have your picture taken. First is the Telecommunications Regulatory Body of Côte d'Ivoire. Please come to the stage. Then the Ministry of Communications from Ghana. And the Postal and Telecommunications Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe. To our bronze partners, first, Inmarsat Global Limited. Closed Joint Stock Company, National Radio Technical Bureau. Technologies. Rostelcom. Roda and Schwartz. Telecommunications Regulatory Agency, Central African Republic. Last but not least, NTT Group. Thank you all to all our sponsors there for being so generous. We've got time for another film now, not from a specific part of the world this time, but one that's looking specifically at how ICTs are driving development and innovation around the world.
Back in the old days, if you didn't have a radio station or a television station or a newspaper of your own, you weren't able to communicate.
Culture is about participation. It's about being together and exploring how we can make our society better. The world has changed. citizens are no longer just consumers of information.
So with this sort of crowdsourcing, what we call citizen science, we're really seeing how communication technology can transform science. Now our understanding is limited not by what data we can get about the universe, but by how many people we can put in touch with that data.
We designed the sensing umbrella to be a node for gathering, displaying, and sharing hyperlocal air pollution data. Each umbrella collects nitrogen dioxide and carbon monoxide pollution levels in real time, displays it above the user's head, and pushes the data to the cloud.
Technology is a really important enabler so that we can communicate in really remote areas about this issue of climate change. And that's something that hasn't been possible just, even 10 years ago.
Rhizomatica is an organization that I helped start. Basically, we help people get set up and running with cellular service in their communities where no other coverage exists. In places where it's not profitable for a large operator to go, people can do it themselves.
Porque es bastante difícil para trasladar del campo a la comunidad de 1 hora a 2 horas. Que trabajamos en el campo, a veces hay picaduras de libro y probablemente cualquier persona puede llevar un celular y nos pueden comunicar rápidamente.
What's happening now is there's kind of a shockwave around what people can do.
Estoy trabajando como socio conductor. Tengo 2 smartphones en mi mano, mi mano derecha y mi mano izquierda. Sin estos, prácticamente, ¿qué diríamos ahora? Es como que me faltaran los brazos, ¿no? Ya que allí viene la fuente, digamos, el ingreso que yo puedo tener.
僕たちは義手を作っています。手を失われた方が再び手を取り戻せるための技術です。これまで物を作るためには初期費用がすごいかさんだりしていたんですが、3D プリンターなどを使って安く広く届けようとしています。
The mobile phone seemed like a great way to facilitate microfinance activity, digital payment, and micro savings.
There's a perception that poor people don't need financial services because they don't have very much money. But what we know from research done by partners like IMTFI is that poor people actually have very complex financial lives.
પછી અમારો ખર્ચો થાય અત્યારે જો મોબાઈલ આવ્યા પછી અમારો ખર્ચોય બચી ગયો અને અમારું ભાડું ઓછું થઈ ગયું.
Through the use of technology, it will simplify the learning process, the teaching process.
This program benefits students. Mathematics has been like a disease. Most of us hate it, but this thing makes us like it.
This is a huge step forward for the developing countries of Eastern Africa to have a high-capacity fibre optic cable which will probably see them through the next 20 years and really bring them into the 21st century.
Technology is one thing. We can do the best technology possible. But what is even better is people who use that technology to do their jobs wonderfully.
Well, that was quite inspiring. I have to say, anything that makes kids like maths deserves a Nobel Prize. We have come to the part of the day that many of you have been waiting for, certainly me. It's our panel debate. Now, I know we've been discussing today the really remarkable historical span of the ITU. We've talked about innovation. What we're going to talk about a little bit here, this panel, is accessibility, sustainability, and again, the future. I'll just introduce my panel guests, I think starting from this side, Philip Walton of BRCK, Louis von Ahn of Duolingo. Then we have Yan Wang of Alibaba. We have Ulf Ewaldson, my apologies if I'm getting any of the pronunciations wrong, of Ericsson, and Gabriella Stiff-Sjöman of Telecom Italia Group. Now, what we're going to do is start off with a very brief statement from each of our panelists about what they do. You may not be familiar with all of them, particularly our two startups here at the end, related to accessibility. And then we're going to get into a debate about that, because I know they're coming at it, having talked to them earlier, from different perspectives. They may not agree. Maybe at the end of it, we will come to some meeting of minds and solutions. I'm going to start with the startups. So, Philip, if I could ask you, just really no more than 2 minutes, please. Otherwise, I'm going to be strict.
Okay. Is that on? So first, it's a great honor and privilege to be here. It was quite funny to sit in the VIP lounge and realize that as a startup, we're quite outclassed. But so I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Brick. We're in Nairobi, Kenya, and we're part of a community of technologists and entrepreneurs called the iHub. There's an ecosystem that's developed in Nairobi over the last 6 or 7 years. And we found ourselves in a position that we were really frustrated by the technology that we had available to us, specifically around reliable connectivity. And so we decided the best thing to do was to solve the problem ourselves. And so we set out a little over 2 years ago to reinvent what it means to have a connectivity device in Africa. We've developed the Brick, which is a rugged 3G Wi-Fi router, 8 hours of battery life, and more importantly, designed for the types of environments that we live in. And what's been amazing for us as we've been able to tell this story over the last few years, in fact, even in that video, you saw one of my co-founders, Juliana Rodic. As we've been able to tell this story, it's how all around the continent, companies and individuals have come to us and said, we've been waiting for this, we've been needing this. And so I hope to, you know, as we share on this panel, just talk a little bit about the value of supporting innovation and entrepreneurs, particularly those coming from emerging markets. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip Walton. We'll go straight to Louis von Ahn.
Can you hear me? Okay.
It's all good.
So I am the CEO and founder of a company called Duolingo, which is now the most popular way to learn languages in the world. I started Duolingo because I wanted to work on something related to education. Now, my views on education are really influenced by where I'm from. I am from Guatemala. And it's a very poor country, and a lot of people talk about education being an equalizer, something that brings equality to different social classes, but I always saw it as something different, as in fact the opposite. Saw it as something that brought inequality to different social classes, because you see, I always saw that people who have a lot of money can buy for themselves the best education in the world, and they can go to Harvard, and because they have such a good education, they continue having so much money. Whereas people who don't have very much money barely learn how to read and write, and because they don't know how to read and write, they can't make much money. So I wanted to do something that brought equal access to education to everybody. Now, education is very general, so I decided to work on one aspect of education, which is learning a foreign language. It turns out there's 1.2 billion people in the world learning a foreign language. But this is a very strange market. There's about 2/3 of these people, 800 million of them, satisfy 3 properties. First of all, they're learning English. Second, the reason they're learning English is in order to get a better job. And third, they are of low socioeconomic conditions. Okay, so most people learning a foreign language are poor people that are trying to get out of poverty by learning English. But at the same time, most of the ways there were to learn a foreign language before Duolingo were very expensive, especially through software. For example, in the United States, there's a program called Rosetta Stone, which is about $1,000. Or in Latin America, there's Open English, which is also about $1,000. And so the irony here is most people were trying to learn a foreign language, were trying to get out of poverty, but in order to get out of poverty, it seemed like you needed $1,000. So we started Duolingo about 3 years ago, and today it is the most popular way to learn languages in the world. And today, for example, there are more people learning languages on Duolingo in the United States than in the entire US public school system. And what really drives the point home for me is, for example, Bill Gates is a user of Duolingo, but at the same time, there are students in public schools in developing countries such as Costa Rica or Guatemala that are also using Duolingo to learn a language. And here, notice something amazing is happening. The richest man in the world is using the same exact platform to learn a language as poor children in developing countries. And that, I think, is true education equality, and that's what that we're trying to do.
Thank you very much, Luis Fanon. We will go straight to Yan Wang of Alibaba.
Okay, so I'm Jian. Actually, I'm CTO of Alibaba Group. And first of all, I really want to say the congratulations of 150 years anniversary, because it really means something for me. And Alibaba actually vision to be a company lasts for 102 years. Okay, there's one reason for that, because we established in the company that started in 1999. So 102 years basically means we last, we actually go through 3 centuries. So compared with the ITU that actually are last for 3 centuries, really our role models, okay. And so Alibaba has 2 businesses. It's very related to the topic that we're talking about today. The first is our e-commerce business, and every day there are around like 100 million people to visit our website to do shopping. And one of the things that we're doing right now, particularly, is really make sure that we have the e-commerce in the countryside, particularly in China, because the people over there, the phone is their first computers, okay? So they don't have any experience of desktop computer. So we think it's a great opportunity to make sure that actually people have equal access, to the internet. And the second thing that we're working on is the cloud computing. And one of the lessons that I learned is, it's not the traditional enterprise or the internet startups that actually using the cloud computing. If you look at our customers, actually, a lot of customers are from the very remote area in China. And in some area, they don't even have the other communication capability other than the cellular network, okay? And so it is interesting to see that with all the infrastructure that we have today, and most of people, is going to see their lives is going to be changed, okay? So this is how we're doing at Alibaba.
Thank you very much, and we'll go straight to Ulf Ewaldson of Ericsson.
All right. Your Excellencies, distinguished members and colleagues of the industry, and ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for Ericsson to be here and to be here as a CTO and talk about this topic. Communication is a basic human need, said our founding father, Lars Magnus Ericsson, in 1876 when he created our company. Communication is based on that understanding between people, but also understanding between different technologies, what we call interoperability. This industry is built on interoperability, and perhaps the most successful case could be mobile telephony. It's the technology in the world that has reached most people of all the technologies that we have. We are now celebrating some 7 billion subscriptions, and we are, on the mobile broadband side, past 3 billion users. These are staggering numbers, and of course the IMT 2000 project what brought mobility and broadband together. So how have we achieved all this in the industry? Well, it's based on alignment, interoperability, openness, and also, most of all, important also, an innovation regime that allows for open innovation between companies to create standards. And those standards has driven this from just a few innovators in the beginning to this global scale that we have achieved today. Spectrum is very important for mobile telephony, and ITU has played a substantial role in aligning that spectrum globally. Sometimes we say that spectrum is the oil of the future. It's what will build and continue to develop that platform into an innovation platform. And I argue that now we sit in front of the most exciting times. We could celebrate, as we celebrate 150 years with ITU, we could also celebrate that this is most likely the slowest time in our industry going from here and forward. We are now seeing an interest from every other industry in the world that is digitalizing to connect onto this platform that we have built. In 2020, 90% of the population over 6 years will have a mobile phone. 8 billion smartphones in that scenario. It is a fantastic platform to continue to innovate on, and we talked about the network society now. It's a society where anything that can benefit from having a connection will have one. As a person gets connected, their life changes. As everything gets connected, or the whole world changes. We believe that we have created by this, in the whole industry, the biggest innovation platform ever for bringing sustainability in terms of development. One has to remember that the ICT sector stands for only 2% of the world's CO2 emission. But the technology that we are working on can affect 98% of the world's CO2 emission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for the final introductory remarks, Gabriella Stivstjärman.
So, can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah, it's good.
Yes. So, like Mr. Evalson, I also say it's a pleasure to be here. And so, Telecom Italia, what does a service provider do? And I want to kind of follow up on what Mr. Evalson said. That, you know, we're in a changing world of, you say network society, and we call it digital life, which is very similar. We're up for a big change. And what does digital life mean? Well, you know, it's all kinds of services. We will talk about Internet of Things, connecting people, anybody, anywhere, on anything. And this is the role that we play. We build these infrastructures. So just like all the highways that you have throughout the world that transport people, we don't transport people, but we make sure that we transport all the data. And just like all of you who've been on these fantastic roads, I don't know, you know, I've been driving through Germany and these fantastic autobahns that can transport anything from the little car to the sports car. And when it works, you know, when you drive on it, it's fantastic. It delivers you on time, you know, flat tires, but if you transport yourself on a bumpy road, then you realize, then you take into consideration the road. And this is the same with networks. So we talk about security, we will talk about reliability, availability. How do you transport all this data in a secure way? How do you make sure it's accessible to everybody? We work continuously to make sure we build out these networks to reach everybody so that anybody can be connected. But they need to be able to be connected on any device. Mobility becomes extremely important. And we want them to be able to access any type of data. And this puts a lot of challenges on our networks. If we look at Internet of Things, I think which will be probably one of the bigger opportunities, but also a big challenge, where we will have services with a huge variation of some services that require a lot of bandwidth, so, you know, wide highways to very little bandwidth. Some services that require little latency. That means that, well, if it works, you know, delivered, kind of you lose a little bit of data here and there, it doesn't matter. Or like healthcare, well, it will matter a lot. So how do we build these networks in a sustainable way? So interoperability plays a very important role, where also scalability, to be able to industrialize whatever we deploy, will play a very important role. So we build these networks, once again, to make sure that we transport in a secure way, reliable way, with proximity to everybody on anything.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, just listening to all of you, something caught my ear, which I think we could start off maybe unpicking a little bit. You two here are kind of the big industry guys. Now, Philip at the start said that when he was developing his brick, he was frustrated by the technology available. So I'm just wondering, maybe start with Ulf Evalson Eriksson. Have you missed a trick there? Have the big members of industry missed a trick? Or?
I think there is no contradiction at all. I think the industry really needs the open innovation. And as I know, Philip's company and working out of Kenya with platforms that are used for routing and communication needs, I think you are a perfect example of a company that is innovating on this communication platform. You're using technologies like HSPA as modems in your units, and you're able to bring this to more users. It's typical for an industry which has this interoperability. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible to build that unit. And the terminal industry, which has this proliferation of 7 billion terminals, is built on that interoperability. So for the industry, these values are extremely important, and they are opposed to proprietary technology, where Philip would have to build an entire network by himself and proprietary, and then it wouldn't happen. So I think in that sense, for companies like Ericsson and other industry players, the openness of the innovation is what we thrive from. We also, of course, invest a lot ourselves in patents, but we're also buying companies and spin-ins and spin-outs. It's a transformed company. It's no longer an industry giant just acting. We have to act for this openness, otherwise the industry wouldn't thrive.
Philip, do you want to come back on that?
So, actually, I think that brings up... Is it on? Yeah. So I think that brings up a really important point is we need both ends of the spectrum, right? If we don't have the standardized infrastructure for us to build our technology on, then we're impeded from being able to innovate. And I think one of the things that has been mentioned a couple of times now is the Internet of Things. When we look at some of the challenges that we're facing in Africa in particular, whether it's water quality, there's a big initiative right now to reduce non-revenue water in public utilities, so public water utilities. And these are issues where we need to have technologies, very agile, inexpensive technologies that can communicate back so that we can provide visibility to where water is being lost in the network. And the challenge that exists today is that the cost of devices that are being imported from the West are cost prohibitive. So we can take an entire community, a water district, and only afford to put 5 or 6 sensors. Whereas if we can innovate locally and design a technology that we can produce locally, we now can put 100 sensors on that same water network and get much better granularity. So I think in the end that as kind of we move into this next phase of what does telecommunications look like, it's going to take a close partnership between the larger players who are bringing the pieces that we need as smaller players to really be able to innovate and be agile on the ground and really know how to solve the problems.
I've got a question about the Internet of Things, and it's open to all of you. Now, maybe I'm not an IT specialist. I have a question about this, which is maybe a bit of a stupid one, but I think a lot of people have it, is that we do hear a lot of talk about it, but yet at the same time, what we heard this morning was that 4 billion people are not connected to the internet at all. Is there a danger that the people who already have the connections, already have their smartphones, and the countries where the big industries are situated will go straight to that, and that we will still have part of the planet lagging behind with nothing, or are these things going to go in parallel? Who would like to answer that?
So I can go for that. So Internet of Things, or 50 billion connected devices, or when everything gets connected around that, it's very important to remember that the scale of the technology is what makes it cheap. In other words, as many users as possible is what really drives down cost when it comes to the technologies like 4G, or now even as we are anticipating and working with the 5th generation mobile systems, the scale of it is what really brings down the cost and can bring it to new markets. Therefore, it's very important for us to scale quickly and to be able to get it to parts of the world where it would make different sense than it does, perhaps in just adding things in evolved markets already. Emerging markets is a great example. I think the Internet of Things will mean so much to those economies. We can already see, for instance, in Indonesia, where the telecommunications minister, Mr. Rudiantara, has already gone out and said that ICT should be at the center of the transformation in the country. And I think there are numerous examples here of nations that are represented here today that has realized and is working with that. The Broadband Commission that is driven within ITU is one good example where broadband plans can make sure that this happens using this global scale and building on the standard to bring cost and bring the technology out to everybody.
Jan Wang, I think you wanted to say something, so as you mentioned earlier, I mean, large parts of rural China just have a cellular network at the moment.
I think I'm very optimistic about the Internet of Things in terms of helping the people that don't have access of internet today. Just like, the mobile phone. Now with the mobile phone, actually, more people have an opportunity to access the internet, And I'm thinking about, if you're thinking about, the one example I want to give is actually the one of the customer, they are actually the truck driver, okay? Mm-hmm. So before they have the mobile phone, before they have all the sensors things, actually truck driver has You know, they don't need the population that have frequent access of internet, okay. But without the sensors, without the phone, actually, in China, there are a lot of people actually set up a specific service for truck driver. So actually the driver has been, you know, been online all time during the driving. This helps them a lot in terms of the, you know, they get the destination quickly. They get information about the thing that they transport, and also, you know, it's easy for them actually to get the destination they want. So I'm pretty you know, optimistic about, you know, with the Internet of Things, so more and more people is going to get access of internet. And but one thing I would really mention is that actually, you know, Internet of Things is the internet. It's not something that's different from internet, okay? So for me, the Internet of Things is more like, I would say, the new internet. So the internet today, I would call the, you know, based on the World Wide Web, I would say this is the traditional internet. So with Internet of Things, we really could have the new internet that everybody, you know, expecting that.
Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, I mean, I suppose my point is that you still need the connectivity to have it. You wanted to come in there.
I would like to kind of follow up on this. So, I mean, I think what we must make sure is that we have a balance and harmony between, you know, the things that will play an important role in the internet. And I want to go back to the network. And I think there's no doubt, like I say, we are super committed to, and I think many of the service providers are super committed to make sure that we deploy continuously networks to make it accessible. But I want to bring up one thing which I think is very important, and we work with all kinds of companies, everything from the startup to the larger companies. And for us, if you really want to make it accessible for everybody, the cost of the networks, the cost of devices, the cost of everything will be very important. And so scalability, to be able to industrialize an idea quickly, will be very important. And that's where I want to make the difference between, you know, all the good innovation or ideas out there that we can test, but how do we industrialize it to make it accessible for everybody so that it scales? Because if it's not industrialized, it will never reach the cost structure that we need in order to make it really accessible for everybody. So we need a big harmony between, you know, the smaller companies, but we really need also those companies who can industrialize these ideas.
Louis, you gave a very good and interesting description of Duolingo and pointed out that some of the traditional similar things to language learning, Rosetta Stone, are very expensive. Just wondering, when you started up as a startup with a new idea, how supportive did you feel the providers, the big industry, were they to you?
Well, we've been very lucky to be supported by big industry. I mean, not only in terms of investment, we have about $50 million of investment, which is good, but also I think a really big support for us was we're an education app. We run as an app, and we would not exist if, for example, Google didn't have Google Play, or Apple didn't have the App Store. They basically, they're an amazing way to deliver content to everybody. And I think it's going to be an amazing way to deliver, you know, for us in particular, deliver education for everybody. I think it's the educational system today is not really, you know, it's working in some countries, but in many countries it's not really working out. There's 1 billion adults that don't know how to read and write. Part of the problem is we just can't reach them. They're very hard to reach. But I think with mobile phones, this is the first time we're actually going to be able to reach everybody. And we're going to be able to deliver education. And like everybody here is saying, I think both, you know, very large companies that deliver maybe the connectivity, and also maybe smaller players where a lot of the innovation happens, are going to be needed for this.
Can we talk briefly about spectrum? You said spectrum, some people call spectrum the new oil, which, given the history of the last half century or so, isn't necessarily positive. Go ahead.
Well, I think we shouldn't draw too many parallels to the oil, but I think it's important that the mobile side of the industry, and certainly it's important to mention then that we are here at the 150-year celebration of ITU, that the spectrum is an extremely important resource for making all these things we want to do. Today, on the Internet of Things, perhaps it can be interesting to notice that we are only about 500 million cellular Internet of Things, and then there is a huge side of it, which is counted as the fixed side of the Internet of Things. And just as was said here, it's an extension of the Internet in some shape or form. But it is important to remember that the mobility part of it is based on spectrum, and therefore we need to have a very clever and intelligent way of distributing this spectrum, and we have that in the regime upcoming now, WRC 15, which is going to discuss the next allocations of spectrum, and 19, which is going to discuss the allocations of spectrum for fifth generation mobile system, or IMT 2020. So it is a very, very important thing, and that has to be aligned globally. That is what is creating the scale that we talked about earlier, that Gabriella mentioned, where the scale is based on that spectrum is aligned and therefore bring lower cost, which helps out Philip with his devices, and more devices helps to bring new apps to the market, including e-commerce. So it all fits together, so to say.
Did you want to come in there, Philip, on that?
I think when we, I know on our end that as a small company, we have no ability really to influence these decisions, particularly at a government policy level on spectrum. But what we are seeing is a lot more innovation around unlicensed spectrum like Wi-Fi. So how can we take unlicensed spectrum that gives us really a lot lower cost technologies that are already out there, they're easy to use, and thinking about, and this actually gets back to the last topic, which I think is a critical point, which is the financial sustainability, right? If we're going to make these technologies actually have an impact, if we're going to reach the 4 billion people who are not connected, we have to have business models around getting this technology rolled out, whether it's IoT as a driver to get humans connected, or it's human connectivity as a driver to get sensors connected. We have to look at the overall financial sustainability in order to make that happen. And I think that things like right now Wi-Fi as a mechanism, as within that unlicensed spectrum, to have some flexibility of looking at how do we make a cheaper sensor, how do we make a distribution of a traditional 4G backhaul, and now get that distributed into a larger number of people over a spectrum like Wi-Fi.
It's partly your job, isn't it?
Spectrum, yes.
Yeah.
Spectrum, yes. It costs us a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Right.
No, but I mean, I don't really have that much more to add. I think that once again, it will be about continuously, and we have a lot of support from many of our business partners, like the vendors, to continuously come up with innovation about how to most effectively and efficiently manage a spectrum. So I go back to the importance of standardization, and the importance of continuously have a balance in the industry between good ideas, but also partners that can industrialize it to make it scalable, cost efficiently. So this is what we are after.
Okay, well, I mean, you all agree, you're from very different parts of the industry, you all agree accessibility, sustainability is really important. But I do wonder, are you, the startups, the regulators, the industry giants, are you all working as well together as you can? Do you sometimes get in each other's way? Has anybody got any examples of how things could improve, how you could perhaps communicate better? Blank looks, oh my goodness.
I don't know, I mean, companies like Ericsson, for instance, we have investment funds financing startups, which is an important part of what we do. And I don't think there is any contradiction between startups and more established companies or old companies like us, 1876, obviously not a startup. I think it's this very strong notion of the potential of technologies that drives industries. And I think that when we are here, we can all see, and it's been said many times, that perhaps the biggest transformation capability of this industry that ITU stands for and drives is yet ahead. And I think that's what's so exciting. That will excite everybody to work together. I think that it's going to require a tremendous effort of the industry to really realize this in a good way. it's already mentioned here about the needed for financial support to be able to do this in emerging markets and new financial models even to make it possible. And I think those things and those challenges are something that there is no need for any contradiction. It will all be driven by the vision of what is technologies and what this can happen, what we can do.
Lewis, you wanted to come in?
I'll bring up one place where it has been difficult to work with larger organizations. So we work a lot, with Duolingo we have to work a lot, sometimes with very large organizations that include sometimes governments. And I think the biggest challenge is just in terms of speed. For a startup, 3 months is a huge amount of time, because a lot of times you're only, I mean, this is not the case with us, but when we were just starting, we were 9 months away from completely running out of money. That's it. And for a government, 9 months is a very short period of time to get something implemented. So when we've worked with governments, I mean, we're working with governments of several countries to try to get all of their public school systems to teach using Duolingo. When they say, oh, we're going to move very fast, they actually mean it's going to take them 2 years to do something. And when we say we're going to move very slow, we mean it's going to take us 2 months to do something. It's a completely different time frame.
Yeah.
And I think that you know, and it's nobody's fault, right? I mean, I understand that larger companies have to move slower, but I think that's one thing that I think is a challenge, the speed with which larger corporations move versus smaller ones.
Go ahead.
But I would like to say that even we larger ones would like to move at a faster speed. So it's not, and I couldn't agree more. And I think I would just like to say that sometimes we are caught a little bit in the middle there, because we work with a large number of companies, both everything from application providers to technology providers and so on. And we see a huge difference into how the support we get in terms of having to follow regulatory issues, in the speed of that, in introducing a number of technologies or services. It varies very, very much. So I think absolutely, I couldn't agree more, and that goes for all of us. Speed in everything we do is of utmost importance. And in speed in standardization as well needs to go faster.
On the other hand, 4G was introduced in 2009, and today we're close to 1 billion users. It's fairly okay in speed, I think.
It shows how fast things are moving, right? And I mean, I think I agree. We've deployed LTE. Then I would like to say we want to make sure that it's used a lot. It's the same with fixed networks. You know, we're deploying now 30 megabits, 100 megabits, 200 to the household. How much of that will be used? So we need applications, and this needs to be done in a speedier way. So the use of one thing is the deployment of the infrastructure. The other, of course, is the usage of it.
So I think to go back to the original question, looking at some of the frustrations, you know, I think that there is often a desire to take something that works somewhere else and copy and paste it into emerging markets. And we see often, you know, people that are engineering the next great solution for Africa, and they show up in Nairobi, and we take them out to a village, and they realize that there's not a mains receptacle, you know, in every building, that there's not reliable power. We had a situation a couple of years ago where we had a nationwide blackout, and when they turned the power back on, it ramped up to 400 volts, and one of the ISPs lost 8,000 routers just in an instant. And so there are challenges like that I think, you know, we certainly hope to see more on-the-ground involvement in the reality of the user experience of interacting with technology in an African context, and for the larger companies to be looking at how can they do a better job of not just copying and pasting, but really bringing a relevancy to the way that technology is implemented into environments like African schools, health clinics, things where it really is kind of the difference between, you know, a frustration that's insurmountable or a practical uses of technology to make lives easier.
So more lateral thinking, not just what works here. Although, interestingly, this is very banal maybe, but one thing I have noticed, because I travel a lot for my job, is that I can often be in some of the poorest parts of the planet. The Wi-Fi is actually better than some of the industrialized nations, because the industrialized nations started, and I'm assuming that you are all thinking that a lot of the technology that started internet and so on here isn't even going to be necessary when you roll it out in places that are not connected. You know, you don't need the first generation. I mean, excuse me, I'm probably talking completely basic grade 101, but I'm assuming that a lot of the slow stuff that we had here 10, 15 years, it's never going to be necessary in places where there is no connection. Now, have I confused you?
No,
I've confused myself.
I think it's something we certainly talk a lot about in East Africa is, you know, this idea of being able to leapfrog. Yeah. You know, that we don't have to go through the same sequence of iterations to get to the technology that we're going to be deploying today. And we're very cognizant of the potential to leapfrog into new innovations that may in fact be valuable outside of, you know, our environment in Africa. I actually grew up in a small West African country called Burkina Faso, and my parents applied for a telephone line in the capital in 1980, and they got it in 1990. It took 10 years in the capital city for them to get a copper landline telephone. Whereas, you know, today I can go to the northern frontier district of Kenya, and, you know, people are using their mobile phone to transact money very efficiently. And I think that, you know, the reality is, like, innovations like M-Pesa really do demonstrate that we can leapfrog kind of that sequence of steps that developed nations have gone through to get to where they are today. And I think this is where, you know, we want to see more collaboration between the folks on the ground and the large organizations to say, how do we you know, bring the financial resources, bring the infrastructure resources so that we can collectively think about how do we take that next big leapfrog in technology.
Okay, thank you very much. We're unfortunately almost at the end, but I would like just to go round our panelists once more for a brief closing comment, because we've heard a lot of enormous dreams and visions for the future, not just from you five, but from this morning as well. One of our panelists said, you know, eventually the internet will eliminate illness because of prevention and so on. Perhaps I would say a bit of a sweeping statement. You, Lewis, said the internet will be the deliverer of education to all. Again, some people, particularly teachers in classrooms, might say, well, hang on just a minute. So what I would like, starting with you, Gabriela, just very quickly, we go around the five. I would like you to come up with one thing you think is realistic that you would like to see in the next 5 years that would increase accessibility.
No, the thing that I would like to see much more is the harmony between really how we can speed up industrialization and accessibility of technology, because it's when you industrialize a technology that it can be made available to everybody. And we are super committed to building out these networks, but we have to be able to do it with technologies that can interoperate with each other, that scale, and that are cost efficient. So harmony between this is extremely important, and we have good representation. You have government, we have some of our key business partners here who deliver a lot of this technology, and so on. But we need a much better understanding of what it takes to close that loop.
Ulf Evelson, your turn.
The one thing that would make accessibility and be living up to the promise of building the more sustainable or leapfrogging in the emerging markets of the world in terms of connectivity is, I think, and I would argue, the regime that we have built this success on in the past. It is very much about that interoperability that communication is about, that can drive down costs, that will build global scale, that will make companies invest money because the market is a standardized, built on standards, and therefore will draw investments because the global potential is so big. That will continue to drive down cost. The innovation regime where universities all over the world are participating together with local industry in using these standardized technologies to build their innovation on, to build their ideas on. It's hard to imagine. I think it was already mentioned here about preventive medicine and self-driving cars and all this. Just sitting in the middle of all this and seeing that innovation power, that industry after industry after industry is looking at towards what the technologies that the ITU represents is doing and how relevant they are for all those industries. To keep that regime in place, including the IPR, the way that patents are being taken, not go down a proprietary route, a route of technology splits and differences between different parts of the world, keep it into one network to make sure that 5G, fifth generation, as well as fourth generation is based on one network idea. That would be the one thing that makes it possible to get a much higher accessibility.
Thank you, Generally.
Yeah. So the internet is such an amazing thing, you know. I do believe that in the next 50 years, it's actually more than just the internet thing. I do believe that actually our whole human planet is going to be on the internet. So internet is not the part of a planet. Actually, our whole human planet is going to be on the internet.
Wow. Luce?
What he said.
Let's breathe.
No, I think, so, I mean, you said that maybe teachers are not going to be super happy about education being delivered through phones, and I don't think the goal is to substitute teachers. I think the goal is to work with them, but I mean, if you look at it, the fact that, for example, just with our app, there are more people learning languages on our app in the US than in the whole public school system of the US. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that. I think that there's a really good study that I've said it a million times in different audiences, but I just want everybody to know about this study. It's called the 2 Sigma study. It shows the following. This is in educational psychology. If you compare people who study in a classroom versus somebody who has a one-on-one tutor, a one-on-one human tutor, the person who has a one-on-one human tutor performs better than 98% of the people in the classroom. Basically, people with a one-on-one tutor learn better. Now, why doesn't everybody have a one-on-one tutor? Because we can't scale that. It is impossible to give one teacher to every student. But if the teacher became a phone, if we can get to as good as a teacher but with a phone, then we can just improve education for everybody. And I think something that is actually doable in the next, maybe not 5 years, but probably 10 years, is to reduce the illiteracy rate by 10% using mobile phones. I think this is actually possible. And that would be a huge thing. That would be 100 million people that were illiterate now can learn how to read and write because of mobile phones. I think that's actually possible.
That certainly is a dream. And last word to you, Philip.
So I think I would come back to looking at how do we do a better job of aligning financial resources with the needs of organizations and entrepreneurs and technologists that are on the ground looking at how to solve kind of the final mile of the equation. And you know, today it's very challenging to get adequate capital investment, whether it's coming from the public sector or from the private sector. And it's been interesting over the last few months. We've seen more foundations that are shifting from just grant giving to looking at various forms of investment towards sustainable technology, sustainable solutions. And I think that if we really want to get to the remainder of the people that are unconnected, we need to be empowering the youth, the young entrepreneurs, the young technologists. You know, the ecosystem that we're a part of in Nairobi, the iHub, has 16,000 members, and all of them are continuously looking at how to solve the practical roadblocks that prevent the remainder of, at least our country from getting connected. And so I think if we can do a better job of aligning those financial resources and the support coming from outside, then we can do a better job of innovating at the ground level and actually deliver on realizing a connected world.
Thank you very much, Camilla. How about some applause for our panelists? It was a really interesting discussion. Don't go away just yet. I think our Secretary General wants to thank you. He's going to give you something. thank you all for staying with us so long. We're almost at the end of our 150th celebrations. We've got another video to show you, but it's not actually from here on planet Earth. We have got the International Space Station to wish us happy birthday. Let's have a look at that.
Hi, I'm Scott Kelly of NASA and the Expedition 43 crew, speaking to you from the International Space Station. Along with my Russian cosmonaut colleagues, we'd like to congratulate the International Telecommunications Union on its 150th anniversary. It may not be visible to the naked eye, but our work and our well-being depend on the radio frequency that carries all of our communications between the space station and Earth. The work that you and your member nations conduct to manage this critical resource has been ongoing for more than a century. During our year-long mission on the space station, we will be working on numerous scientific experiments that will collect data for future journeys to Mars and beyond. Thank you for the work that you do, and happy 150th birthday, ITU.
Scott Kelly there on board the International Space Station. We have a few more countries who are sending best wishes. Back here down on Earth, of course, Russian Federation.
Дамы и господа, мне очень приятно участвовать в этой церемонии.
To be honest with you, I'm a bit surprised.
Сначала я был очень удивлен такой большой честью.
I know that Russia will issue a stamp for ITU's 150th anniversary.
Я знал, что Россия к этому юбилею приурочила выпуск специальной памятной марки.
But I didn't know that I might have to participate in this ceremony.
Но кто не знал, что мне выпадет такая большая честь участвовать в торжественной церемонии гашения первого дня. Именно в Петербурге. И именно в этом прекрасном музее.
It's a very historic and rigorous place to mark all these important events.
We just go quickly to Portugal. Portugal. Here we go.
is a great honor for us to actively celebrate this landmark anniversary of ITU. We are very proud that Portugal has been part of the history of ITU from the very beginning. Let us continue to innovate together for at least 150 years more. Congratulations, ITU. Parabéns, WITI.
Portugal celebrates ITU's anniversary with an exhibition that focuses on the technological, economic and social impact of global communications in the area of information and communication technologies, highlighting Portugal's geostrategic importance over time and the global community to which Portugal is linked. The Portuguese postal operator, CTT, Correios de Portugal, also celebrates ITU anniversary with a commemorative philatelic issue. WITI, 150 anos. Parabéns, WITI.
And our very last visit across the Atlantic from Portugal to Peru.
Las TIC tienen que ser totalmente transversales, de tal manera que se articule con otras políticas públicas.
Los cambios que hemos observado en el mercado peruano, por ejemplo, son una clara muestra de que la innovación...
Los ciudadanos, los pobladores, nuestros compatriotas de esas zonas deben, cuando ven las aplicaciones de la tecnología de información, ¿no? En vez de mirar a Lima, valoran lo que tienen en su entorno.
Entiendo que todo lo que, muchas de las cosas, de las herramientas que necesitamos para lo que es innovación, están basadas en tecnología de información.
Para hacer planeamiento en el territorio hay que trabajar información en el territorio, hay que saber qué se tiene en cada...
¿Cuál sería interesante para que Perú pudiera entrar realmente como un nicho interesante?
Well, that brings us just about to the end of our celebrations. We've got the Secretary General, Deputy Secretary General up here for the grand finale. I'd like to invite elected officials of the ITU and former elected officials up on stage, please. one very last festive video, and maybe when it's 200 years of ITU, we'll see some women in that roll call of honor as well. Okay, very last video. I was told we had one last video, a birthday one.
Today, ITU, the oldest agency in the UN family, turns 150.
Happy birthday, ITU!
Happy birthday, ITU!
Happy birthday, ITU!
Happy birthday to ITU!
Všechno nejlepší k narozeninám ITU!
Happy birthday, ITU!
What you need today is to bring people together. And that's exactly what ITU is doing for the last 150 years.
Happy 150th birthday, ITU!
Happy birthday, ITU!
我们一同祝贺 ITU 150周岁生日快乐
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday, ITU!
Feliz cumpleaños!
Happy birthday, ITU!
It gives me great pleasure to wish our very good neighbour, the International Telecommunications Union, a very happy 150th anniversary.
Happy birthday, ITU!
Zum Geburtstag, ITU! Tanti auguri, ITU! Cumpleaños feliz, ITU!
Je souhaiterais vraiment remercier l'IUT pour cette coopération exceptionnelle que nous avons depuis plus de 140 ans.
Feliz día a la UIT.
Happy 150th anniversary to ITU. Congratulations.
Happy 150th birthday from St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Alles Gute zum Geburtstag, ITU!
Feliz 150 años, UIT.
Happy 150th anniversary.
Conmemoramos el 150 aniversario de la Unión Internacional de Telecomunicaciones.
Happy 150th birthday to ITU.
Mr. Madden here from obviously Ireland. Happy birthday! Have a great 150th anniversary. Happy 150th birthday from Kingston, Jamaica!
Happy birthday, ITU!
Felicidades.
Happy birthday, ITU, and I'm watching you, ITU.
Okay, thank you very much all for coming. I hope you enjoyed the day. I think we had some very interesting debate, a good look back into history, and I wish you all a very nice Sunday evening.